The show's main character is a strange young girl named Wednesday Addams. The young girl, who is only 13 years old, hardly ever displays any emotion and is completely consumed by an odd obsession. She is also well known for dressing in strange, gothic black and white clothes, which everyone finds odd. Wednesday arrives at her high school with a creepy expression on her face in the first scene. She discovers her brother, Pugsley, bound with an apple in his mouth, inside her locker. As she shoves him out, Wednesday has a vision of the person who tortured her brother. We learn here that she is not a typical child. Wednesday has the ability to see someone's past and future simply by touching them. She walks into the swimming room with 2 bags full of piranhas after discovering that a group of bullies from the swim team is behind this. Then she casually lets the bloodthirsty piranhas loose in the pool. As the bullies flee in terror, Wednesday declares that nobody picks on her brother except her. In the following scene, we meet Wednesday's parents, Morticia and Gomez. They've had enough of their daughter's misbehavior and have decided to send her to the prestigious Nevermore Academy. It turns out that all of the students at this academy have supernatural abilities, and they are taught how to control them. Morticia and Gomez are both graduates of the same academy, implying that they, too, have superpowers. Meanwhile, a hiker sets out on his own through the woods near Nevermore Academy. Unfortunately, an unknown creature attacks him and kills him after only a few minutes. Later, the local sheriff discovers the mutilated body and begins surveying the area. Surprisingly, we learn that this heinous murder is not the first of its kind. There have been numerous similar incidents in recent years. Wednesday then arrives at the academy and meets Principal Larissa Weems, who runs Nevermore with ease. She introduces her to her roommate, Enid, a werewolf who is in every way the polar opposite of Wednesday. Enid is a laid-back girl with brightly colored decorations on her side of the room, whereas Wednesday is obsessed with all things black and goth. Later, Enid takes Wednesday on a grand tour of the academy, pointing out the 4 major school groups: Fangs, Furs, Stoners, and Scales. Fangs are vampires, Furs are werewolves, Stoners are gorgons with snakes on their heads, and Scales are sirens capable of manipulating people. Enid also shows her the most popular girl in school, Bianca Barkley, a stunning siren, and her ex-boyfriend Xavier Thorpe, a death artist who can make his drawings come true. Meanwhile, as the Addams family drives away, Gomez releases Thing, a severed, living hand. Thing is in charge of keeping an eye on their daughter. Wednesday attends fencing class the next day, where she is pitted against the formidable Bianca. After some back and forth, the girls find themselves with equal points and decide to remove their masks and fight until someone draws blood first. A brutal battle soon ensues, with both of them matching each other stride for stride. However, Bianca ultimately triumphs when she slashes a small cut on Wednesday's cheek. Later, as Wednesday is leaving the infirmary after being bandaged, she is nearly crushed to death by a falling stone gargoyle. Fortunately, Xavier, the death artist, arrives just in time and pushes her out of the way. Wednesday returns to her room shortly after, but she suspects that someone is watching her. As a result, she searches the room and eventually discovers the hand, Thing. Wednesday, realizing it's her parents' fault, threatens the hand with locking him in a drawer if he isn't loyal to her. Thing, terrified, vows to be faithful. She is required to attend mandatory therapy sessions as a result of Wednesday's piranha prank. As a result, Larissa, her principal, drives her to her therapy session in Jericho, a small town outside of Nevermore. She meets with her therapist but does not discuss anything. Wednesday, on the other hand, has another plan. She excuses herself to use the restroom before fleeing through the window. Once outside, she runs into a man by chance. She has a vision in which she witnesses the man's death. Wednesday, terrified, goes to a nearby coffee shop. There, she meets Tyler, the sheriff's son, who also works as a barista. Tyler is having some mechanical issues with his espresso machine. The instructions are inexplicably in Italian, but Wednesday, thankfully, can read Italian. She quickly fixes the device and requests a ride to the nearest bus stop. But before Tyler can respond, a trio of bullies dressed as pilgrims storm the store and taunt her. Wednesday tries to ignore them, but when she has had enough, she fights back and easily smacks them down. Principal Larissa arrives at the store with the sheriff after a while and notices the carnage. She lashes out at Wednesday before driving her out of town. They pass a terrible car wreck on their way to the academy. The victim is the same man Wednesday saw earlier in her vision. Later that night, in the dorm balcony, she plays a haunting song on her cello. It's a full moon night, and you can hear several werewolves howling in the distance. Enid, who is a werewolf herself, reveals that she will not join them because she cannot transform. Meanwhile, Thing enters Tyler's room and requests that he call Wednesday. Despite his fear, he agrees, and the two begin video chatting. Wednesday requests Tyler to meet her the next day at the Harvest Fair, claiming that it will be fun. However, in reality, she simply wishes to leave the academy. While at the fair, we notice Larissa keeping a close eye on Wednesday. Despite this, the goth teenager eventually catches up with Tyler. The two are almost out of there when Wednesday runs into one of her classmates, Rowan. He dashes into the woods, and she has a vision of Rowan being brutally mauled to death by someone since Wednesday touched him. Terrified, she changes her mind and pursues him to inform him of the news. Rowan uses his telekinesis ability to secure her high up on a tree before she can say anything. He then reveals that 25 years ago, his mother, a powerful seer, predicted Wednesday destroying the Nevermore Academy. As a result, Rowan believes he must kill her before anything bad happens. He then begins telekinetically choking her, but then a massive monster leaps in, tears Rowan apart, and vanishes into thin air. Wednesday stands over his mutilated body, looking at the alleged drawing of his mother. Soon after, police officers led by the sheriff begin searching for Rowan's body, but they are unsuccessful. The sheriff, as expected, does not believe Wednesday's statement about a monster attacking Rowan and believes it was a Nevermore student. An officer interrupts their conversation, and we see Rowan, who is still alive. When Wednesday arrives at her room, she notices that her roommate, Enid, is too preoccupied with the Po Cup competition, a boat riding game held every year. Later, she attempts to speak with Rowan, but Principal Larissa informs her that he has been expelled for reasons she cannot disclose. As a result, Wednesday goes back to Plan B and requests that Thing keep an eye on Rowan. The scene then shifts to Rowan, who has arrived at the train station, with Thing hot on his tail. After observing his surroundings, he sneaks into the restroom and disguises himself as an elderly man. Thing, however, loses track of him and misses the transformation. Later, the old man's name is changed to Larissa, the principal. This reveals that she is a shapeshifter, and she is covering up Rowan's murder for some reason. With no other options, Wednesday goes into the woods to look for evidence of Rowan's murder. Tyler, who is stalking his father, is accompanying her. She eventually finds Rowan's glasses, and as she picks them up, she has a vision. She sees a purple book in the vision, from which Rowan got the drawing. Wednesday wastes no time in confronting her class teacher about the book, and the latter reveals that it belonged to an old student society known as the Nightshades. However, the society has long since been disbanded. Wednesday sneaks into Rowan's room after school to look for the book. She discovers a mask beneath his bed, but Xavier arrives before she can leave. He is Rowan's roommate, it turns out. Wednesday quickly hides under the bed, just as Bianca arrives to see her ex. She overhears their conversation and discovers that Bianca intends to humiliate Enid in the upcoming boat riding competition. As a result, as soon as she returns to her room, Wednesday decides to assist Enid by entering the competition so that they can defeat Bianca. Wednesday and Enid prepare for the competition the next day. Because there are no rules, everything is fair game, which Bianca is taking advantage of. The game consists of 4 teams rowing their boats to a destination and returning. The winner is whoever is the first to cross the finish line without being knocked out in the lake. As the competition begins, Bianca teases one of her friends, who is planning to sabotage the other boats. The friend, who turns out to be a mermaid, dives into the lake and destroys one of the boats, effectively knocking out the team. Fortunately, Wednesday and Enid are prepared, and with Thing's assistance, they manage to capture the mermaid. Wednesday, on the other hand, has a different vision during the competition. This time, she sees a blonde-haired version of herself, who informs her that she is the key. Wednesday regains consciousness, only to discover that Bianca's team has taken the lead in the race. She and Enid, unable to give up, decide to play dirty. They use Bianca's dirty tricks against her and eventually win the competition. For the first time in 4 decades, a non-siren team has won the prestigious competition. Later, Principal Larissa honors the winning team by handing Enid the Poe Cup trophy. Wednesday, however, is overwhelmed by the attention and seeks refuge with Edgar Allan Poe, a former student of the Nevermore Academy. She notices a symbol beneath the stone book he's holding. It's the same symbol Rowan had carved in the picture he'd given her before he was mauled to death. Wednesday quickly solves a series of riddles written in the book and discovers a clue, snapping twice. When she snaps twice, a secret corridor suddenly opens, revealing a hidden chamber. Wednesday successfully locates Rowan's book, from which he tore the picture. She stuffs the book into her backpack, but before she can go any further, a black sack is thrust over her head. When the sack is removed, she is surrounded by Bianca, Xavier, and a few other students who are members of the Nightshades Club. Although the group had previously been disbanded, Principal Larissa secretly reinstated it. Xavier invites Wednesday to join their group, but she declines and walks away. In the following scene, Principal Larissa announces the annual Outreach Day, during which the Nevermore students will be required to interact with normal people, also known as normies, by working alongside them at their establishments. Wednesday informs Xavier that his roommate may have been murdered once they arrive in town. Rowan is not dead, according to the latter, because he was only expelled. Despite this, Wednesday shows him Rowan's mother's drawing. Xavier examines it closely and discovers that the man in the picture is the founder of Jericho, Joseph Crackstone. Wednesday later decides to volunteer in the Pilgrim World, the site of Jericho's history. Eugene, a young boy she befriended in the beekeeping club, meets her there. The two begin talking right away and begin observing their surroundings. Miss Arlene, the Pilgrim World's caretaker, approaches the students soon after. She gives them a tour and tells them about some of Joseph Crackstone's most prized possessions. Wednesday inquires further about the artifacts and discovers that they contain original farm tools, tableware, and even the family chamber pot. She wants to work there but is unable to due to renovations. Instead, they'll all be working at the Ye Old Fudgery, distributing fudge and cakes to local tourists. Later, Wednesday, with Eugene's help, sneaks into the Crackstone family chamber. She discovers a painting of the old meeting house that depicts the girl from her vision. Soon after, she discovers the book that the girl was carrying. When Wednesday notices the pages are blank, she suspects it is a forgery. Arlene, the caretaker, arrives and captures her. Wednesday inquiries about the original book, and Arlene reluctantly admits that it was stolen last month. Tyler and Wednesday later reunite at the coffee shop. Tyler reveals that what is left of the original meeting house is out in the woods when the latter inquiries about Joseph Crackstone. It is essentially a ruin, and meth heads use it as a crash pad. Wednesday and Thing rush into the woods in search of Joseph Crackstone's home. When they find it, they come across a homeless man, but Thing chokes him and scares him away. Wednesday has a vision all of a sudden. She travels 400 years in the past. We see the blonde girl she met in her previous vision. Villagers are encircling the girl, referring to her as the devil's spawn. Soon after, Joseph Crackstone emerges from the crowd and addresses her as Goody Adams. He accuses her of witchcraft and sentences her to death in a barn with other accused people, including her mother. Goody, in turn, accuses them of stealing their land, slaughtering the innocent, and stealing their peaceful spirit. Enraged, Joseph stares at her for a while, before setting fire to the barn. Goody tries to free her mother, but her efforts are futile. Finally, when there is no hope left, she escapes through a trapdoor. Meanwhile, Wednesday is watching everything with them in the barn. Goody soon approaches her and declares that Joseph will not stop his crusade until he has killed them all. With this realization, Wednesday awakens from her long vision and tells Thing everything. They are startled to see the same monster that killed Rowan lurking behind them. Wednesday chases it down in the rain but is unable to keep up. As a result, she follows the footprints, which strangely begin to resemble human footprints. This reveals the monster's true identity as a human. She then runs into Xavier and tells him what she witnessed. He wants to examine the tracks, but the rain has washed them away. The next day, everyone gathers in the town square for the unveiling of a new statue honoring Joseph Crackstone. While the mayor and Larissa announce the statue, Wednesday performs an instrumental version of Fleetwood Mac's "Don't Stop" with the Jericho Marching Band. However, disaster strikes when Thing, in accordance with Wednesday's orders, sets fire to the statue. While others flee in terror, Wednesday's eyes gleam with vengeance as she plays the cello quickly. Later, Principal Larissa rips into Wednesday, suspecting she is to blame for the incident. However, the adolescent denies any wrongdoing and instead confronts Larissa for refusing to acknowledge the bloody, racist truths upon which Jericho was built. That night, the monster attacks the homeless man from earlier, and his camera begins recording the incident. The sheriff and his team arrive at the forest ruins and discover the homeless man dead. They discover footage on his camera that may reveal the identity of the perpetrator. After developing the photos, the sheriff examines the killer's face, a nightmare monster. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe. Check out the next episodes of this series as they air on Recap Center.